All right, so today we are going to go through and talk about the graphic design process and then the web design process. And hopefully you've been doing this in your other classes, or maybe you just figured it out on your own, or you might have learned it in high school, or if you're working somewhere, you've done it as well. Let me go over to a full screen. Go full screen mode here. Whoops. Anyway, well, close enough. So we're going to go through the process for graphic design first because it's really just the older one. I'll pull up a bunch of websites too and show some examples. Some of this stuff sounds a little dated. This actually comes from the little purple book. I don't remember the name of it now. That's bad. It's been around for about 40 years, but it has purple cover. That's what we all called it, the purple book. And it really went through and broke down the design process in about 50 pages. And a lot of this process is the same for other industries. So if you're doing creative writing, well, guess what? It's pretty much the same steps. Or if you're doing design work, engineering, it's the same steps. It's just we insert different methods into this. Video production. If I taught video production, I would still go over the graphic design process first and then go over and say, okay, what do we do with video production? Is there, thumbnails get replaced with storyboards? But it's really the same thing. So, design process, research, audience, format, budget, time, goal, everything's examined here. This is where we spend most of our time. This is actually where I probably spend 50 to 60% of my time on any project. Because if I don't have what I need later on, I'm just wasting time. And time's money. When it all comes down to it, is if I can cut corners and still produce a quality product, and that's experience, then I'm going to do it just because I don't want to spend 3.5 hours in research unless I have to. It really comes down to deciding, hey, how much time do we spend on this? And these are the questions we need to ask. So for this scenario, I'm just going to say we have a client who's coming to us who wants to do a 8.5 by 11 trifold. So just something real simple, full color. They want it on nice paper, something they can put in an envelope and mail, or put out on the like out on the counter, or put it wherever. It fits into everything. So it's a very standard size paper, standard size, standard fold. Nothing fancy here. No die cuts, no spot colors, no spot UV. None of these things. It's just they want you to do a front and a back, and it folds up. So with that, client comes to you and says, okay, this is what I want. So the first thing I'm going to really ask them, and it's not in the order that I have up there, is when do you want it? Because that's the key. And guess what they're going to tell you? Tomorrow. Or no, I needed it yesterday. That's my favorite one. Well, that's all fine and good, but it's going to cost you a lot more money because I'm going to have to stop something else to do your work. And so that means I'm not making that money. I have to double up the amount of money I'm making because I'm still going to have to go back and do the other work at some point. And one of the things that you may have already found out as a designer, I'll be honest, we're not that well respected. I have to fight every single battle every time. I get people coming, well, it's easy to do. I go, if it was so, and I get blunt now. I go, if it was so easy, do it yourself. I mean, really what it comes down to is, why are you coming to me if it's so easy? So I'm probably a little bit more cynical than, but the honest to God truth is they expect everything from us now. If they go, oh, you're a designer, well, web too, and can you do some video? And oh, are you a photographer? Oh, do you know how to fly drones too? Oh, it just, the list goes on and on. And if you've looked at employment, job postings, I've seen some job posting that says you need to know PHP, know HTML, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Dreamweaver, Muse. You need to know Premiere, some Final Cut as well. We hope you know After Effects and Flash or Animate, and we're going to pay you $14 an hour. And you need 3 years of experience. And I just look at those and go, yeah, what we do does not, the public doesn't understand what we do at all. They think it's easy. It's like, oh, you just threw that together. Yeah, but there's a cartoon that's floating around. Someone said it was like the boss says, oh, you did that in an hour. I just want to pay you for an hour. But no, it took me 10 years to learn how to do it in an hour. So There's still this, and the other problem is everyone thinks they're a designer. Everyone has an opinion. I really don't care about other people's opinions when I'm working. I don't even, and I'll be blunt, I don't care about my clients' opinions either, because quite frankly, they're usually wrong. They want polka dots and zebra stripes on their stuff, and I'm telling them, no, you have to follow, you have a style guide, you have your logo guide, you have all these things. No, and here's my favorite one. Oh, my daughter's in school, and she said, I go, no, that's not. Or my other one, oh, my son's a writer. Well, that's fine, let him write then. Just keep him out of my job. So I'm super blunt at this point. I mean, you can't be all the time, but what I found is it makes life much easier when you're dealing with a client. So this is before we've even gotten the project we're dealing with these problems, and they will grow. And it does. Here's the worst one of all: you work for a company, you tell them this is what we need to do, this is everything, and you get pushback. You get the boss says, oh no, we want to do this, that. Then they go hire a consultant who comes in and says the exact same thing you did, and they act like it's the word of God. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to do this. It happens to me all the time. And I've been on the other side of that. I'll come in and tell everyone what to do, and then the poor designers and everyone else looking at me going, they're like, that's what we've been saying all along. I go, yeah, but it just costs an extra $40,000 for them to finally figure it out. So, yeah, sorry. I get... Oh, yeah, it's and it's getting worse. To be very honest, it's getting worse because our industry is not a united industry. We have AIGA, we have a handful of groups, but for the most part, everyone is singular in this industry. We don't work together well. Even when I had 100 people in my department, everyone still was doing their own thing. I mean, it took me forever to wrangle them all. It was herding cats. It's like every once in a while it all came together. Most of the time I just had to deal with them on an individual basis to get the work I needed out of them. So, and there's rules too. And we're going to go over some of them with this, and as time goes on, you'll figure them all out. But if you work for a big company, there's really strict sets of rules that we have to go by, especially with corporate identity. We're going to talk about that today in a little while too. So first thing though is time. I go to the client. How fast do you need it? Well, we're going to make this client today nice. They go, oh, in about 2 weeks. Okay, now we're dealing with something that's usable. So I go, okay, that's great. I go, how much money do you have? And I'm blunt about that too. I go, what is your budget for this project? And the next thing they're going to say is, well, how much do you charge? And I go, no. Doesn't work that way. I need to know how much money you have, because if we're going to print this, you may not even have enough money to print the job. So, they may go, oh, how much do you charge? And I mean, I can give them numbers, but if they don't have the money to even print the job or to buy the hosting or do those types of things, most clients don't even think about that. So, actually, let me close all this up real quick. I'm going to show you a website that I use. So how many of you heard of 4over? They got all kinds of problems right now in Texas and all that. So 4over is a trade broker, so they're a print broker. And they're based here in Glendale. They're one of the largest printers in the world now. They have facilities all over the United States. So when I order something, and it could be a lot of different things here, if my client's in New York, it's going to come out of the New Jersey office. If they're here in Southern California, it's going to come out of Glendale. And so what happens is you send it to them, and then they decide where the closest place to print it and consistency in print. I'm going to log in here. Let's get our free shipping on t-shirts. Okay. So you can see over here on the left. Now, you do have to have a resale license. They will not even talk to you. They'll hang up on you, actually, if you call and ask for pricing. They'll ask, are you a reseller? Are you a print broker? So basically, I'm a print broker as well. And the reason I do this for all my print work is I can make more money off my printing than I actually do on the design most of the time. So client came in, said, I want an 8.5 by 11. That would be a flyer, or let's see. So we have the grand format, and what I'm looking for is right here, flyers and brochures. So he said 8.5 by 11. So this is where, once again, well, the reason I'm asking how much money they have budgeted for this is I've got a lot of options. I need to decide how much money they got before I can even tell them what products we can put on the table. And this will be your biggest battle, because the client will probably come back and say, well, how much do you charge? It's like, no, how much are you budgeting for this project? And I can work around your budget. And I sometimes charge $200-300 an hour. Sometimes I charge $50 an hour. It all depends on the client too. I do have set numbers that I'll throw at people. And then I always have the numbers, which is I'm just being nice and I don't want to work for them. And so that's a whole other set of numbers, and it scares them away. I'm still nice. I still say, here's what it is. Sorry, this is what's going to cost you. If they don't like it, then oh well, So you can see there's lots of stuff here. So we have flyer on a 100-pound Dole book with satin aqueous coating. Anyone know what that means? You better learn it. So what that means, it's the thickness of the paper, 100 pounds. So all paper is based on thickness. So you'll see points and pounds. So 100 pound is pretty standard. It's heavy. You've probably held it 1,000 times and just didn't even know it. So if you've ever picked up something that's like glossy, a flyer, it's probably 100 pound or 80 pound. 80 is a little thinner. It's thicker than this type of paper, though, your standard copy paper. I can't remember what we got in here, but you can always just look on the side of the paper or the box, and it'll tell you what the point or your pounds is. And it's by weight. That's why it's called pound. So dull means it's a dull coating. But it has satin aqueous coating. So the aqueous coating doesn't leave fingerprints. So if you've ever picked up paper and it hasn't left fingerprints, it resists the oil on your hands. Glossy doesn't. You've touched glossy, you see your fingerprints all over it. So that's one of the things we need to decide is once again, I need to know how much money they have so we can look at different coatings and stuff. So let's just say they might bring a sample too. That's the other thing I would ask them. Show me something you like. Show me a paper you like. Show me something that, that way I'm not sitting there and going, oh, this is that, does this work? What I like to do too is if you do end up with a trade account, they'll send you a packet for like $15 with all the samples in it. So you can actually show a client, go, this is what it feels like. This is what it looks like. If it's corrugated cardboard, they have it in there. They have metal. I mean, we can print on metal and plastic and all these different things. You can show a client, go, this is what it's going to look and feel like. This is it. And even for myself, sometimes some of these weird ones I don't know, and I have to go look it up in the book. So it's like a little 3-ring binder type book that they send you. You go through it and pull. So we'll say 100-pound gloss book, they like it, no aqueous coating. So this is just standard glossy paper. So we're looking at 8.5 by 11 with no aqueous coating. So there it is. And now we need to talk about, they can only do 500. So what does this tell me? Anyone know? Low press run? Oh boy, you guys are going to get a whole bunch of stuff thrown at you today. Sorry. This means it's digital. That tells me right away this is a digital print. What that means is, so in printing, we have digital and we have offset. I prefer 4-color offset printing. That's just my own personal preference. I can tell the difference. I don't even need a loupe. I don't need a magnifying glass. I can look at a printed piece and tell you if it's digital or if it's offset right off the bat. And the reason is digital is like a color copier. If you look at it, it's still a little off. It's not bad. For the general public, no one knows the difference. But 4-color offset uses a dot pattern. And so 300 DPI. Everyone's worked in dots per square inch. We actually can go up to 600 and with a diamond instead of a circle. So Nat Geo, National Geographic, prints at 600 DPI with a a diamond-shaped dot pattern. And you get a magnifying glass, look at it, you'll see the difference. So it's tighter. It's a much tighter print. So it looks better. Well, 300 is the standard. So everything we're doing is at 300 in print. In web, though, we're working at 72. So it's a huge difference in DPI here. But this tells me right away that's only 500, which might be is what the client wants. I don't care. But I need to go up and get to the larger stuff. So it has to do with the paper, too. So let's see what else we got here. We got 80-pound gloss book, 100-pound gloss book. Let's do that one. I think this will give me the numbers I want. Where's 8.5 by 11? There it is. With aqueous coating. Yeah, that's about the right price. So let's try this now. There we go. There's some real numbers. And the reason is, once you hit to a 500 or 1,000 on a digital printer, the cost doesn't come down. The cost stays the same with digital. That's why we didn't see any higher numbers, is because if you're going to do 1,000, even 4over wants to run it off their big press. It's faster. So think of a digital press. It's just like that printer we have back there, just much bigger. And it's just printing them off one by one. Well, they're only so fast. It's like a copier. Offset printing, even the smallest press is about the size of this room. The biggest ones are about 4 to 5 times the size of this room. So think about that. Just right off the bat, we can push a lot of paper through an offset printer. And then there's web printing. They don't do web, and actually a lot of web printing's gone away just because it's cheaper to offset now. But web printing is newspapers. You've probably seen those giant machines that would come off a roll and the paper comes through. That's web. And newspapers are still done cheap things. It's really cheap to run web. So let's say the client says, well, I've got 2 stores. I don't know how many I want to buy. What I will do is I'll look at 1,000 right away. I don't show the client this. This is not for the client to see. So what did I say? We're going to do a trifold. Yeah, letterfold. That's what we call trifold. Letterfold. So when you open it, it goes 1, 2, 3. So it's pretty standard. You've seen them before. You can do 3-hole punch if you want to. You can direct mail these. So if they have a mailing list and we got to mail them to 1,000 people, they'll mail them for us and do all our postage. We'll never have to touch them. Everything will be mailed directly from 4over. I'm not going to do that because we don't care. So if I got this in today, I'd probably have it on Monday, maybe Friday. I'd actually deliver if I got my files in today. And that's 2 to 4 business days. If we had to turn it around tomorrow, we can have this by tomorrow afternoon. If I got this in by 10 o'clock today, I can have it in my house by tomorrow morning, probably by about 9 a.m. That's how fast they can turn around. And it only costs $12 more. Now, am I going to tell the client that? Oh, hell no. Like, If we're doing this, we're going to mark that one way up. But that's my cost. So we're looking at just straight cost here. And then I'm going to have this delivered to my house, UPS. It's next day here in LA. They'll actually drive it over to your house too, or your place of business. They have a delivery system. So it's going to cost me $13 to do UPS ground for this box. So we're looking at $92 is my cost on this for 1,000 units. And there's our next runs. Look at the cost difference. See at incremental, 2,500 is at 147, which is a good, it's not doubling it. And then 5,000 is only $186. So this is now the client goes, yeah, I like the paper. This is what we want to do. I'm going to run these numbers. And I'm going to say, look, I'll get you a quote on your printing. And once again, let's say the client says, I have, we'll just do $1,000. They have $1,000 for this job to print and to pay me. So what I'm going to look at is I can run them 5,000 units for $186. So this is not that big of a profit margin for me between 92 and 186. It's only less than $100. So what I'll come back and tell the client is I can run off 5,000 units for you and deliver them and design work. Well, and I'll give them this price first. I go, I could do this for, I'm doing about 120% markup. I can do this for $450. I can give them to you for $450 and tax too, because we got to collect sales tax. And I go, so the design work's going to run about $400 for you as well. So I can come in around $900 for you. So I'm going to come in under their budget. And I go, now, and this is what I'll tell them. I go look up how much 5,000. This is why you got to love Google. Got to use it to your advantage. By 11 flyers, glossy paper. They are not going to see this, so let's see, what do we got? And actually, before I open my mouth and to give them that, I would do it here. I don't know, I'm just pulling someone here. So, there you go. They're going to find around $439. So, you know what I would do? I can do it for $350. Or figure out shipping, too. I would just play with the numbers and come in and go, look, they'll be delivered to you. This is where it is. I can tell you if you go to like Go Print, this is all digital. They're not doing 4-color offset either. That's for $250 only. So yeah, this is probably not going to get. How many did I say? 5,000? Wow. Interesting. Oh, hold on. Remember, I'm double-sided too. Actually, it's cheap. I wonder where they're printing it. Well, I mean, if that's lower than what I can do, they might be using 4-over and they're only marking up like $60. Anyway, just play with the numbers, see what I can put together for them, give them a better price, and this is where I'm going to make a lot of my money, is on this. It's offsetting any design time that I would have to charge. Now, if they just want me to design, then I'm going to say, here's where you can go buy this stuff, figure out a price, then I can figure out where where I sit with the money on the other side of it. What's great about 4-over, though, is like the other day I had someone come to me and they go, I need a flag. I'm like, I don't know how to print flags. But they have flags. So where'd it go? Brand format. You can print flags with them. They come with the pole and the grommets. So like right there, and they're polyester. They're a dye set on polyester, which means they'll never fade. They will never ever fade. So I'm like, oh yeah, look. And the one we were looking at, because we have to do them for the Boy Scouts, for the troops, for the group. I can't remember what they're called. The patrols. Ended up being, my costs on these were $24 with the pole, and I think they were like $32 shipped. So I was like, oh yeah, we'll just order them. Don't worry about it. And I do the banners all the time. The banners cost me about $12 to $20. The ones that you see all the time on fences and all that. They're the ones who print for everybody out there. But they have car magnets. You can buy a car magnet, put it on the side of your car. And what's great about this is you can just come in here and go, okay. There you go. $21 is your cost on a 24 by 18 car magnet. And you can go bigger, 36 by 36. Whoops.
They don't have entire like wraps though, right?
They do have it now. Where is it? Yes, I actually have done cars and I've done big tractor trucks. And the difficult part of that is the design, is knowing what to do on the design. It's not the wrap. The wrap's the easy part. It's taking the template apart and laying it out flat and figuring out where things go on that template. And a friend of mine does that all the time. Like I just send stuff to him, but he does all the conventions. So when you go to a convention, you see all the buildings and stuff wrapped. That's his company. They're down in Torrance. And they have a printer that's wider than this room that they print off of. It's a Hewlett Packard. And so it's that sticky stuff to put in the window, the 3M. And they do giant buildings. The stuff in LA, when you see the side of a building, that's their stuff. But his specialty is wrapping cars and trucks. And he is good at it. I've done it a few times. It's just time consuming. You gotta sit there and go, okay, you don't want things to break where they aren't supposed to break, like over a door or a window and things like that. But they even got banner stands now. I mean, it's scary what you can order from them. They got into everything. And so sadly, if you go to someone else, like say you go to a printer, chances are they're sending the work out to 4-over. Like if you order from them, the work goes from here because they ship everything in boxes that are unmarked. So you don't know it comes from 4-over. Other than if there's a red eye in the bottom right corner, that means it was printed at 4-over. So people in the industry know. We look at a box, I go, you're using 4-over. They're like, how do you know? I go, there's a red eye on the side of it. But here we go, like sidewalk signs. They do those with, for like if you have a real estate agent, this is what the real estate agents buy. And so you get double-sided quantity. Let's just order one. $44 with the holder. So it comes complete. Just put it out. I got to order one of those for someone. They do mounted canvas too. So, at Costco, when you bring a photo in, this is the same process. And they're not that expensive either. They do next day plus one. $16, going up. So the main thing here, though, is to get into this, you have to have a California resale license. You have to have a resale license with the state. That basically means you're collecting sales tax and you have to report and pay sales tax. So I would charge tax to my client. I have to collect that tax and I have to report it quarterly. It's just part of my business. But the nice thing is I don't pay taxes on the stuff I buy for my own personal business. So like if I need business cards, this is, let's see. They have some really nice new things for business cards. These brown craft cards. I like them and I almost bought some and I kind of backed off. But it's they're actually printed on that brown craft paper, the recycled paper. And it's offset, so it looks really nice off of it. Let's see, I think I've got one. So here, I'm going to pass these around. This is their new 16-point, they call it silk or satin. Just feel it. That's a satin. So this is why having samples with a client, I can hand them and go, do you like the satin card? This is 16-point satin. They make a 24-point press now, where it's two separate cards pressed, so you get a line on the edge. So there's lots of stuff out there. It's like, this is the other one. They make suede, so you can get suede cards and suede printing. They call it's velvet. Actually, when you hold it, it feels like velvet. And it's really thick. It actually is almost like a 20-point card. It's real super thick. Plastic and metal cards are not a good idea. As much as they sound awesome, they are like the worst idea on the planet. I was going back through security in Las Vegas, and someone had given me metal cards. I put them in my wallet. They pulled me aside. They want to know what all the metal was in my wallet. So I'm like, oh, it's just business cards. And they're like looking at them like, yeah, great. But things like Aquafoil, this has been around now for a while. You can do, I think there's like 200 different versions of foil that you can attach to it now. So lots of stuff. But business cards, you can buy 1,000 business cards for $18 shipped for free. That's your cost on them. So if you're going to do business cards for people, charge them $80, $90. You can have them directly shipped to them for $18. That's your entire cost on the entire order. So like I said, this is where, going back to my, the budget and the time and the goal, I'm sitting down with the client. So we know it's 8.5 by 11. Just as the project, let's say it's a restaurant. So it's a trifold, like Chinese restaurants. So it's going to have a menu on it. You're going to have everything on it. And so now we kind of know the format. We know the time. We know the budget. Now we really need to talk about what their goal and their audience is. So what is their audience? Is it something that they're going to mail out to people? Is it something they're going to hand out to people? Is it something they're going, because let's say a Chinese restaurant, are they putting in people's doors? Are they, if that's the case, maybe we do a door hanger. We don't do a trifold. We can do door hangers with them too. They punch it out and put it out there. So we'll just keep it simple. It's 8.5 by 11, trifold. We're good on that. We know the audience, which is it's the menu. It's something that goes out with all their stuff, so we know their audience as well. But, another thing with audience is language. Are we doing this in English? Are we doing it in English and Spanish? Is this in another language because of the neighborhood they're in? And a lot of times the client forgets about that. I'll go, who are we targeting? I mean, I'll go on Google. You can go into Google and see what the language areas are now. Type in Santa Ana language, and they'll actually show you what languages are being used in those areas based on search results. So they know everything about you. They know about those communities. So if you go type in a zip code in Google, there's actually a search in there. You could see what languages are spoken in those zip codes, the primary and the dominant languages. So this goes back to this audience. And I'll be honest, the client doesn't think about any of these things. They're like, what? I'm like, well, it shows that Spanish and English, it's a 50-50 split. If you're trying to reach both audiences, we may have to do both bilingual on this, or do a Spanish version and English version. And that's going to cost more money, but in the long run, you'll have it translated. And so translation's a tough one. I have a friend who's a professional translator for the government, and she screws it up all the time. And it's Spanish, and she still makes mistakes because there's just different versions of everything out there. She even says, she goes, Spanish, European, Spanish, Latin America are two different languages. So finding someone who could translate is tough, but how many of you know about Fiverr? Yeah, I know.
Just pay $5 and do whatever you want.
So this is your competition. I can go on here and pay someone $5 to do that design I just talked about. Now, mind you, it's going to look like I paid $5 for it, but the client, I'm sorry, but most clients just don't care anymore. It's all about, oh, is it cheap? But what I like about Fiverr is there's a lot of repetitive jobs that, here we go, graphics and design. So let's see, logo design, business cards and stationery, illustration, I don't know, vector tracing. So let's just do logo. No, I don't want it. I'm already a member. No, leave me alone. So there we go. All these people will do a logo for you for like 5 or 10 or 15 bucks. And these are, if we start digging into here, none of them are Americans. They're all from Pakistan, India, the Eastern European countries. China is not part of this. They're not allowed in here, I don't think. I haven't seen it yet, but when that opens up, now you got a few more billion people trying to do this. And everyone goes, oh, $5. Yeah, I go, I've got someone who works for me in the Philippines. We pay him $25 a page to draw entire comic book pages. I asked him, I go, what's your rent? His rent's like $85 US a month. So, it's not like what we're looking at where it's like, yeah, you got to make $3,000 a month, $5,000 a month here. You just barely to cut it. These countries, if they make $20, $30 on this, it's a lot of money. So that's what we're dealing with now as the world's open up. And now you can come in here. Look at that, $5 to draw a hand-drawn logo. Look at that. One logo with high-res, JPEG, and PNG file. And they'll do that for you for $5. Wow, that's scary. But the reason I bring this up is writing and translation. So if you need someone to write something real quick or translate and you don't want to spend the money, or let's say this is what I actually use the service for. I need people to transcribe my videos so I can do closed captioning. So it usually costs me about $15. Like for the video today, if I sent it off when it's around an hour and a half, it's going to cost me $10 to $15 to get it typed out. And that's from someone here in the US usually. I got a couple of people I use, and they'll have it back to me within 24 hours. I send them the YouTube link and go, transcribe this and send me a Word doc. And then I'll give them the $15, $20. You could tip them too. I always tip them. I'm like, geez, I got to give them at least $5 more dollars. I feel bad actually. But it's scary. Web design is the one that really scares me more than anything else. What I'm going to go through with you guys next week, where is it? Or is it under graphic design? Oh, I missed. There it is. They will set up for $5 the entire website. Because you'll see once we do it, it's not hard. And you get it down, you can pump through them real quick. I can get a site up in about a minute right now. Now, mind you, that's no content. It's just the shell, and that's what they're doing, is really just getting the shell together. But for $5, you can have it. So you can do icons, you can do a landing page. It's and some of these have been doing it for a long time. Like this one's, they'll do a UI for iOS or Android app for $5. And my guess is they're in India or some other country. Oh, look at that. It's Bulgaria. See? Eastern European. So 1,783 reviews. They've probably done a ton of jobs. That's why they're at the top. So $15. They'll give you a PSD file. So they'll give you a Photoshop document. 1,100 reviews. So they're making some money somewhere. Problem is, it's eating what we're doing. It eats into what your career big time. Because if you have a client like the one I'm just using as the Chinese restaurant, if they figure this out, trust me, they're going to go here and try to do it for $10. I mean, I'd even tell them, just go try it. If I didn't want to work with them, I'm like, go to Fiverr, go somewhere. They'll throw it together for you. It'll be perfectly fine. They'll probably use a template. A lot of this stuff is templated out. But it's quick and easy. Keep that in mind, though. You can use it. If you need to translate, what's going to hurt? $10. They translate it for you. Worst case, it's not right. Oh, well, $10. So we're not dealing with massive budgets here. But also, too, you might not get exactly back what you want. And I've had that happen where I've had people bring me a logo and I'm like, where'd you get it? Oh, I got it on Fiverr. And it's like low resolution off the web. I'm like, well, I can't work with it. But the good ones will at least give them something to work with. So, getting back, we haven't even gotten out. See, I told you we do all our work and research. So we know all these things now. I can start working on it. And remember, this is probably the most important point. And I hate to crush people's dreams on this. We're not artists. We are, but we're not. We are commercial artists. We're designers. We are beholden to the dollar. We are beholden to the client. Now, mind you, I can convince a client to do what I think based on my experience, but in the end, the design will be the means by which the client's message is communicated. We communicate. And if it doesn't do that, then we totally failed on the project. It may be the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, but if it doesn't sell more Chinese food, then it doesn't matter. It could be the ugliest layout on the planet, but if it sells more Chinese food, then we did our job. We got paid. Will I ever show it to anyone ever again? Hell no. But, it's just, I did my job. I got paid. Everyone's happy. And in the end, if the client is happy, and this is a hard thing for especially new designers, even though you might, you just tear your work apart. Oh, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. I've gotten over that. I look at stuff. I go, yeah, whatever. It's fine. Client's happy. We all got paid. Move on. Move on to the next thing. That job really, the work itself isn't going to get me more work. It's the relationship that's going to get me more work. Because I have friends who are really brilliant designers. And luckily they work in the corporate world, because if they had to freelance, they're not going to make it. Because they don't have the personal skills. They don't know how to deal with clients. They don't know really how to do all this. They're in an insulated place as an art director or whatever, and they work for a big company. But they work well in that field, but you move them out where they have to do all the personal stuff. That's where we start running into problems. And that is the number one thing that we've heard from industry. And I say we as a state. I was just at a big conference in Fullerton, and we had all the aerospace. We had Knott's Berry Farm there, and Knott's Berry Farm, their HR people and their managers were going ballistic. Disney was too. They cannot find people that can do customer service. It is bad. They're like, it's an epidemic for them right now. And sadly, it's every industry. We see it across the board. And that's our big problem right now. And that's why people are staying in hate to tell you this, but the generation before me, they are not leaving the workforce. I have an industry right now where people are averaging 70 years old in the industry. And the problem with that is we'll never have those jobs. All those jobs that existed, they're going to go away. They'll automate. But the people who were in them that are now in their 70s and 80s are not leaving. They're still the bosses, too. We talked about that last week. I had that issue just recently. The manager at one of the places I was dealing with was 78. And I go, so when are you going to retire? He goes, I'm not retiring. and he'll probably be there till he's in his 80s. And the problem is now all the people under him in their 50s and 60s. They've never been managers. They're never high. We've got an issue that we don't know how to correct. But customer service skills are the number one thing that just they don't know how to deal with. You know, we get people who don't know how to deal with clients. They don't know how to deal with the public. And so if you got that, you can be employed pretty much anywhere at this point. So, but yeah, the Knott's Berry Farm people were really, and I kind of say, I go, well, then pay your people more money. That's another problem too. They don't pay well. And I go, well, then you're not going to get better people. I go, In-N-Out does really well with it. But so step 2, all that stuff we just talked about, I have it all in front of me. The other thing too, before we get to step 2, one last thing. So how many of you have done a corporate identity guide? All right, I'm just going to pretend everyone raised their hand right now. No. So how many of you have done a logo in one of your other classes? Okay. Did you guys do a corporate identity guide that went along with it? Okay, so when I ask a client, like let's say the Chinese restaurant, I'll say, do you have your logo on a disc somewhere? That's my way of saying, do you have a corporate identity guide? Because if I say corporate identity guide to the guy who owns like the Chinese restaurant, they'll be like, what? I go, the logo that's on the outside of your building, did someone give it to you on a disc? Or do you have it, you can email it to me. And is it, and I won't even say high res because they don't understand. I go, send me everything you've got. They might have an Illustrator file, they might have an EPS file, it might be a PDF, it might be a JPEG. Just give me everything because I'm going to need it. The other thing I'll ask them too is, like, show me or tell me what your colors are. Like, the inside of your building, is it all pink and purple or is it like white and blue? I need to know because, and show me other things you've done. So for small companies, they don't have corporate identity guides. It's almost like you got to piece together all of these things to figure out consistency. And that's what I'll tell a client. I want to be consistent in our message. Even if I'm designing something new, if all you've ever used is blue and white and your customers know that and the sign outside your building is that way, I'm not going to do something different. I need to align with what you've already done. And so piecing all these things together makes it easier. Now, if it's a bigger company, then yes, I'm going to say, do you have a corporate identity guide or a visual identity guide? And I'll say, can I get all the files? Do you have it online? Is there a portal? A lot of sites or a lot of companies will have a portal. I can log in, download the files I need. It tells me all about it. When was this? About 3 weeks ago, or it was about a month ago. I judged the Adobe Certified Associate World Championships at Disneyland. And what it is when you do your ACA, you get entered, and they bring about 50 people from around the world. And what it is they have a real client who goes through everything I'm talking about. They have to design a poster, and they're given all of the collateral, including the logo, and very specific visual identity, corporate identity guidelines, like free space around the logo. It was 1.5 inches. Absolutely no one passed the corporate identity guide part of it. I failed all 50 people. That was part of what I was grading. And it was sad. All I had to do is take a red pencil and go, nope, 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 on every single poster. Even the posters that look good still did not follow any of the identity guides that we gave them. And I wrote up a whole thing about it to Adobe for next year. I said, quite frankly, this is something it's an epidemic. I mean, I go, nobody passes. And these were people from USC, from Art Center. I go, no one paid attention to anything we told them. And I go, if I was the art director and they pulled this on me twice, I would have fired them. I go, this isn't even something that I don't have time to teach this to someone who's working for me. I expect them to at least be able to read one of these guides and tell us, okay, I work on it. Let me see. I think I have it still. I wrote one for Golden West. It's a horrible one too. I hate it. Nope. Let's try this. There it is. Oh, that's funny. Someone picked it up from somewhere else. Standard manual. Oh, I want to log in. Well, some other website found it, but this is what our book looked like. We had the logo broken down completely. I mean, down to what not to do in the book. It's not here anymore. That sucks. But you can see even this one right here is a simple one-pager. It's like a single page that you can hand out. It has the colors, has everything broken down. Our guide had all, let me see if I can find it, because it'll just be easier to go through it. So what happens when you're gone for a few years? It's still in the newsroom. They switched over. Anyway, let me find another one. AT&T. Perfect. So here we go. Here's the AT&T Bright. Well, it's an old one. You saw how fast I found it. So if you're working for a company and they don't know anything, you can probably find it online. So here it is. They have a breakdown of the corporate signature. Excuse me. So the globe symbol, the logo type, there's horizontal, there's vertical. So it tells you everything you need in here with the tagline. Restricted uses. Can't do what you want with it. And this kind of goes back to my problem with all of the students who were in that contest. They were doing this. They were breaking apart the logo, changing the color. I'm like, no, you can't do that. I mean, it's not even an argument at this point. This comes from legal. And so, yeah, as a designer, sometimes I don't completely agree, but this is the law, and we have to follow these rules. Here's the big one, clear space. This is pretty standard, 1 times clear space. So this gives you a nice clear space. Running stuff together. Learn margins, use them. I even tell some of my students, if your pinky finger touches 2 things when you put it on a piece of paper, you don't have a big enough margin. Expand stuff out. Use your white space. That's what this is here. And I would see the logo down in the bottom corner right up against the trim, like literally being cut off. There was no margins. There was no free space around things. Here's colors. So it tells you exactly how to use this stuff. Like this one here is great. It shows you how to do the solid colors, both outline and on the backside. This is my favorite. Don't do these things. Sometimes these books are huge. I used to have an American, when I had my office, I had an American Airlines one from I think it was the late 80s, early 90s. It was 24 books, like encyclopedias, on how to use the logo. And every single thing you could think of, down to how to weave it into a carpet on the airlines, or how to etch it into glass, or how to put it in metal. And that was someone's job, was to say, this is our corporate identity, because it's worth, sometimes the identity is worth more than the company itself. Like Coca-Cola. It's the most, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, doesn't matter what language you're in, you know what it is. Nike's another one. Apple's another one. When Pan Am went under, Pan American Airlines, they sold the rights just to Pan Am's name for, I think it was like $4 million. Someone bought just the logo and the name to use it on other things, because it was worth more than the company because of brand recognition. So something like AT&T here, they have their own font, Clearview. And then they use Verdana, which is a pretty standard font out there. So this even tells you what fonts to use. So there's no question at all. And then here's the best one, tone of voice. How to write. How the tone is when you're writing things and putting things together. Friendly, energetic, fast, helpful. I hate this stuff, because it could be, but here you go. It even tells you what your target audience, the message, what to say and what don't say. So the message is, our Quad Choice offers bundled home, internet, blah, blah, blah. Do say, go on, have it all. Don't say, it's a comprehensive service bundle that meets all your communication needs. So they're even telling you how to talk in this thing. More than I would have done. But here's the vibrant colors, where to place them with gradients in Illustrator, and how to draw them out. There you go. They have a step-by-step guide on constructing a vibrant color to use with the logo. And if you notice, that's what this is down here. That's that vibrant color. And then there we go. Colors. This is where I really want to get into. These are our specifications. So you got your CMYK. So you got CMYK, RGB, and sometimes they'll give a hex number, which is for the web. But this is CMYK, RGB. So we have no question on what colors to use. We could type these in Illustrator or Photoshop, and we're working with the correct colors. They even have their own guide. There's the ARC system. So there you go. Pulling from these areas to create consistent cropping throughout all of your work. And the other reason I'm throwing this at you is when you start working for bigger companies, I hate to say it, there's no reason to think. They've already told us what they want, what we need to do. We need to execute and stay within these guidelines. You can be creative within these guidelines. But sometimes if the job needs to get done like in 20 minutes, they've already done the work for you. We just got to put it together and get it out. Yeah, this one's like, how not to screw it up, as always. Like, don't do that. And there we go. Icons. They have their own icon system too. Don't use it as a graphic violator and things. And then they have their own photography. They have their own entire back catalog of photography stuff. So there you go. Photography style. It isn't posed. People are vibrant and moving and unique angles. Element of orange. They want orange and everything. Yeah, don't do this. Illustrations as well. They don't want you doing cartoon or retro or realistic stuff. Oh, they even have their people to contact directly if you need new illustrations. So yeah, this is pretty... Actually, this isn't that comprehensive. If you notice, there's links out to all these different things. This is just the overview. So we would go from there and work our way out. And that's all the stuff. So, my little Chinese restaurant, do they have that? No. But I have to think this way for that restaurant. I have to get all their logo together. I have to look at their colors. I have to do all of that. The nice thing is when we get to the web design side of all this, we have to do all the same stuff, so we don't have to go through it all again. We've already talked about it. All right, so we get to start working now. Thumbnails. How many of you have a book that you're working with thumbnails? Okay, good. One. Everyone should raise their hands. Come on. Those black books are good for this, or just something. I will tell you more and more, well, you guys are already in school. Let's say you're going into a master's program. They're going to want to see your sketchbook before your portfolio now. Art Center's doing that. Everyone wants to see how you work. They don't care about your finished product because doesn't matter where you go. Even companies, they don't care in some ways because they're going to mold you the way they need you to work. They want to know that you're flexible enough to actually do the work and that you have a process. So even if you're not a good artist, it's still, you got to sit down and work your way through your ideas because we're in a visual medium. If we were writing, you would sit and write and then, work your way through your writing. Thumbnails though. And so just be glad you don't have me for like InDesign or Graphic Design 1 or 2. My minimum now is at least 100 thumbnails for every project. Usually the next day. That's usually or the next week. Sometimes a lot more. Like we did one project, I think we probably did 1,000 thumbnails. Everyone did. And I go, no, go through them all again. We got it. We have to work through the problem. This is where we work through all the issues. So we have all that research we did. These are the ideas, the sketches, the brainstorming, the doodles. They're small in size, but proportional to the final project. If the final piece is 8.5 by 11, 1.5 by 2. So we're dealing, small. It could just be circles and squares. It could be stick figures. If you're not a great artist, that's fine. This is where I will skip this step just because of experience. But I'll still do them, but I won't do a ton of them. I know what I need to do, so I'll scribble down what, real quickly and go, okay, this works. Then I can move on. But as you're starting out, which is where all of you are, it really is critical to do this. Don't skip this. Even for web, even if we're using WordPress and looking at themes, just getting the ideas down on paper, making notes. So I use these. They're the moles. They're the new moles. So they sell these at Costco now in a pack of 20. So they're not the hardcovers. I hate the hardcovers, but and this is all I do all day long. I mean, I have to. I learned the old way, so I'm very. But I use Evernote too on the computer for all my stuff. But this is how, if I'm sitting with you, this is how I'm taking my notes. So each of these is like a meeting. And then the bad thing is I don't have my book. Then I start doing this, and I drag my partner up the wall on this. But I tape all my stuff inside the book. And this is how I've got tons of these at home filled up. So I can always go back and figure out my notes and what I did. But this is if someone asks. I didn't have a lot of drawing there because I've just been taking notes. But I draw and I sketch and I doodle and all that. And that's my book. And if I was hiring you, you'd show me your portfolio, maybe your Behance, it's all digital. And I'll go, do you have a book? Do you have a sketchbook with you? I'd like to see your sketches. Now, these are your ideas. We don't show the client these. The client doesn't see any of this. They don't need to. It confuses them. But this is your area. This is your ideas. It's critical in all design and illustration work. If you go do a Google search for thumbnails, you'll find tons and tons and tons of stuff. But every illustrator does it. We have to work our way through it. The computer makes the process easier, but don't cut out the thumbnail stage. So once we have thumbnails, I've worked through it. What I'm building towards, and for a client like the one we're talking about, I would not do this. But let's say it's a bigger client and we have to really start putting stuff together. I'm really shooting for 3 mock-ups. I'm going to show them 3 different designs, maybe 5 if it's a big client. But if you notice, I'm not doing 4 or 2 because then it's A or B. You don't want to do that. So I'm taking my 3 best out of this, and what I like to do is I'm going to give them what they want, 100%. If they walk in and say, I want this in black and white and zebra stripes, well, guess what? That's what I'm doing because that's what the client asked for. Now, I can prove them wrong. I'll make it ugly too. I mean, it's just something quick, but it makes them happy. What they asked for was delivered. Then I'm going to give them what I think they should do based on everything I've done, which may be completely different from what they asked for. And then my third one is the compromise. It's a mix of the two, or it's close to what they're asking for, but with my design sense. That's what I always try to do. A client like this, I don't have time to do 3 layouts. So I'm going to pretty much give them what they want, but give them a good design layout. But I'm still working through the process the same way. And so roughs, I'm going to take my best 3 and rough them out. Maybe this is where I start jumping on the computer. Or I might do them again, draw them out. But you take your best work, you rough it out, and then we can start working on comps or comprehensives. So step 4 is the comprehensive. This is where the computer comes in now. This is where I jump into Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, whatever I'm working in. And this is where I really start doing my work. Comps and finals are pretty much the same thing now. I'm building my comp to be a final, no matter what. So this is the presentation piece to the client. Make sure it's carefully done with all the pieces in place. They look like the finished product to a point. They may have rough artwork or illustrations, but the client needs to feel that this is the near final product, and they can make a yes or no decision based on the comp. So this is what we're delivering to the client to say, hey, proof it. Tell us if we're in the right direction. Do we need to get different photos? That type of thing. And what's sad is we don't do comps. I shouldn't say sad. It actually sucked. I learned how to do it this way. Marker comps. Anyone ever do marker comps? Nah, good. This is how we did work before the computer. How did we do something that was manual and not spend a ton of time actually doing it and still show the client something they can make a decision on? So this is a comp. So this is an old, like for a toy company. There's color comps. Working out color. You know, what type of color we're working on. There we go. Illustrations. So they're not finished pieces. They're rough. There's some logos, some stuff. Here you go. There's a really good layout just for a magazine. I'm able to show the client this and maybe real photos and say, and maybe other samples. But now with the computer, we're showing them finished pieces. Is that Raiders of the Lost Ark? There you go. And how do we do posters? You have to comp them out. So this is a dead art. It ain't coming back. It's kind of like calligraphy. Very few people are learning it anymore. It's great. I love this stuff. I mean, it's beautiful work. But it doesn't fit into our workflow anymore. The money's just... There's another one. That's almost like a thumbnail now. Like if I was doing thumbnails, that's like a really good rough thumbnail. You know, I took some ideas and now I can move over to the computer with it. But illustrators would have to do it. Ooh, I like this type of stuff. It's like some grocery store back in the 60s, 70s. You always tell by what people wear. So, but there's another one. Dole mushrooms. Okay, so, but it's a lost art. There are some people who still learn it, even architecture. So if you've ever seen architectural renderings, they used to be done the same way. Actually, it was usually the same artists that would do architectural and design comps. Now that's all computerized because we can build it out quickly. So I'll go through and build out what I need to show the client. I'm going to show them, you know, the finished product. I will print it. So in the case of our little trifold, I'll run it off a good color printer on some glossy paper. I will fold it up and hand it to them and go, this is what it's going to look like. Is this where we needed to go with it? Different other types of comps. If any of you work in film and television, that's a storyboard. So everything in film and television, no matter how mundane it is, if someone's walking in a room, someone storyboards it all out and everyone's marked across the board. If you ever look at any of the stuff from Pixar or Disney, the entire thing is sketched out. It is completely sketched out top to bottom. So you have people just do storyboards. Now that's digital too. You could do digital storyboards real quickly now. There's software for that. Package design, like I said, if I was printing, but if it's a box or a wine bottle, I'm going to mock it up so the client can hold it and they can see it. Printed pieces, folded or presented to final form. Like I said, our little trifold. Catalogs, magazines. We used to do what was called cover plus key. So if I had Truckin' Magazine, it was 200 pages. I am not mocking up 200 pages. I'm going to mock up the cover, the index, and maybe one of the big articles. And that allows us to build from there. Presentation. So this is where you got to sell. And be enthusiastic, sell your idea, be ready to listen, prepare to compromise. You will compromise. It is rare that I've ever had anything that didn't come back with changes and compromise. I've only had one big job that didn't. That was one of my Emmy covers. And they were just thrilled with it. It was like, no, leave it completely alone. I'm like, okay, I'm done. So, you know, I'm going into final production directly from comp. But being able to work back and forth with them, be ready to defend your work too. They're going to ask, why is this blue? Well, your corporate identity guide says your color is blue. I want it to be purple. Well, no, you can't. Go talk to your art director. It isn't going to work. Here's why. And we pull out the identity guide. I go, look, I'm following your guys' rules. If you want to break them, I'll break them, but I'm trying to protect you as well. Because a lot of times you're working for a client who's not a designer. They may work for a company like AT&T, and they're not even talking to their art department. So I'm playing the in-between there too. So I'm trying to protect my client from getting fired or doing something stupid at their company. If you don't know an answer, say it. Go, I do not know. This happened to me yesterday. We got asked about some budgetary stuff, and both me and my partner looked at each other and said, we don't know. We haven't run into that yet. But we'll call up to the California Department of Ed, and we'll find out the answer for you. That's our job, is to find out the answer. So if you don't know something to say, or my favorite is, they go, well, why is it blue? I don't know. It just looked good. That's not an answer. Even if you got to, I'll be honest, even if you got to bullshit your way through it, as long as it sounds right, the client's going to probably be happy. And we do it all the time. Well, why do you pick blue? Well, your building contrasts to the sky so well, and it's white, and it works well with the blue background. I don't know. I'm just making that stuff up. But it sounds good, and it gets me beyond that question, because that question's a waste of my time as a designer. So be honest. If there's problems, if you're behind, just tell them you're behind. Chances are it's their fault you're behind. That's the other problem with our industry. They'll say, oh, we want you to do all this stuff. Then they don't get you a logo. They don't get you any copy. They don't call you. You've called them 25 times. You've emailed them. You have an entire list of things you did. And then they come back and go, we need it tomorrow. Well, it's like, well, no, it doesn't work that way. Well, you had this for weeks. Yeah, but you never answered anything we asked to complete the job. So we did our part. We did our due diligence. But in the end, we're still left holding the bag. So then we got to figure out how to make it happen quickly. The other thing that I will do, I will resell stuff from other clients to other clients. I have absolutely no problem. Because if I'm doing 3 comps and only one of them is bought, I own the other ones. So if I have a client who comes in who's similar, I'm going to pull comps from other clients and update them. Saves me time. I make more money. And no one else used it. I've actually taken complete designs and put it in a different industry. Same exact thing I did in one, use it in another. They never see each other. And even if they do, they can't figure it out. I change colors, lay things out a little differently, and I'm good to go. The other thing, too, here is stock photos. So we're going to talk about copyright a little bit later in the year. We have a lot of places to get stock photos. So there's iStock Photo, there's Shutterstock. Adobe now owns a huge stock, 90 million photos. Getty, all of these ones out there. And what's funny is that was a good article this morning. I read it. The guy who took this photo, I don't know if you've seen this meme floating around, and it's everywhere. They actually interviewed the guy who took the photo. It's part of a series of photos he did. And then that's the other thing, too, is you get these stock images. The guy that was in the last Star Wars movie, Finn, he's in a series of stock photos before he was an actor. And there's a couple universities in the Midwest that use them on their cover of their catalog and stuff. And I think it was University of Ohio was using it. Everyone caught it now because everyone knows who he is. But there's tons of it out there. Photolia is cheap. There's lots of good stuff. But Adobe now bought them. So that's Adobe stock. But they're out there. Here's the big problem is we get a client who will give you a bunch of pictures, and I'll ask, where do you get these pictures from? Well, I downloaded them off of Google. And I go, all right, look, yes, I know you do this, but it is illegal. I mean, we're breaking every copyright law on the planet. And I said, if we're going to do this, and I have accounts, so I can either charge the client, or if I just need photos, I'll go get them. One of the things I'm going to show you right now, but we're going to do this in WordPress. One issue I have is I don't have photos for this site. This is my site for the work I do at the state. But like these photos here, I didn't want to just go grab photos off Google and they're going to pop up and I get a cease and desist order from someone. So I knew there was Creative Commons. How many of you know what Creative Commons is? So Creative Commons, whoops, I completely did not spell that right. It's an American nonprofit organization that helps basically set the stage for Creative Commons. It allows you to put a license on whatever you create that is searchable, that says, oh, I'm a photographer. Anyone can use this photo. You tag it with Creative Commons, Google picks it up. You could do a Google image search for photos that are cleared through Creative Commons. There's different levels here, and this is kind of a whole other class for another day, but what's great about it is in WordPress, let's go to dashboard. So this is what we'll get into. You're going to get to know this really well. This is your interface. This is your software you're going to use the rest of the semester. But if I go in and create a new post, there's Pixabay. So if I'm writing a post about cats, I can come in here, look up cats. I can use all these photos. They're cleared through Pixabay. So Pixabay is pretty much open, and these photographers, all free images. So over 1 million stock photos and stuff, it's all free. And what I love about it is, built in here, this little plugin allows me to then go and download. And it takes care of, like if I do this one here, I really don't want it in my thing, but I'll do it. It puts a link back to the person who created it. So this all happens automatically. I don't have to go to that website and look for a cat and download it and upload it. I've integrated it into the site. I'm going to delete it because I don't want it in my site. Come on, delete. But if I'm doing print work, they're all big enough for print. So if I need a picture of, I don't know, Chinese food. Whoops, I spelled that wrong. My kids would kill me. That still came up. There we go. So there's Shutterstock. But here's free images. Gets me started. And I'm like, oh, that looks good. There's the Creative Commons. Free for commercial use. So we're good here. We can download it. We can use it. Maybe I'll download it and trace over it or run a vector trace on it. Or there's all kinds of things I can do with it. But now I know I'm free and clear on this and no attribution required, which is nice. I don't have to say it was from so-and-so. I can, but I don't have to. This image is just totally open and free to the world to use. Only problem is everyone else can use it too. But this guy's got 920 images. Actually, there's some good ones in here. Interesting. Pizza, hot dog. That's funny. They're European. When's the last time you ever saw a hot dog that looked like that? Like, what the? And then my favorite part is American hot dog. And that's another issue, too, is when you're picking photos, make sure the people look like the people that are going to be in the neighborhood. I really, really hate the multicultural, diverse photo at the office. I'm like, I've worked in a lot of places, and I very rarely get one of every race, every color, and every gender standing behind a table. I go, that's not the way the world is. So I've had designers do that. I'm like, does that look like anyone who works at that place? No. I go back, walk through the office, see who's in there, and that's what you need to match up to. But, food too. If the food doesn't look right, it doesn't look like something that we would use, then, don't put it in here. There's a whole series of some mouse. So it's a quick place to find good photos, print and web, and we'll use it for the web with WordPress. They have plugins for it. So it makes our life much easier. The downside to free photos, inconsistency. The nice thing with buying them you can get an entire disc of hospital workers, and it's the same hospital workers dressed the same way doing different jobs. So if you're doing an entire catalog, now you have consistent artwork. And a lot of times too, they'll have the masks, so the items or the people will be masked out from the background, so you can drop in Photoshop, knock them out real quickly. That's what you get with the paid stuff, is those. But quite frankly, everyone's got a camera now, so it's becoming more and more, it's much easier. And also, too, you have a camera on your phone. I always get people like, I don't know how to do like a wood background for info. I go find some wood and take a picture of that door and download it and drop it into Photoshop. Or do what go on Google and just go wood background with Creative Commons. Here, so if we go Google, I put wood background. And I go to images. If you go under tools, usage rights, labeled for reuse with modification or labeled for reuse. I do that. All of these are cleared with Creative Commons. So now I can steal from Google all day long and not worry about, am I going to get dinged with a cease and desist order? And trust me, they sent them. So here we go. Like that one I like. So I'll view the image. I don't know if it's big enough. Oh, look where it sent me. So it's there. Be creative. I like layered stuff. We'll talk more about that too. I like to layer things. If I'm doing a poster or something, I'll take this. This will be my background. I may not use it directly, but I'll use the texture. I like to build up as much as I can. Doesn't mean flat's bad. It's just this is a little bit more interesting. All right. Artwork and paste up. We don't do any of this anymore. We don't strip film. We don't paste up. You run a linotype and pull text. We do it all in Photoshop, Illustrator, and Design. We get it together, make sure it's ready for print. And that's another skill set that is sorely lacking in the industry, is being able to take your files and get them ready for print. Knowing what your DPI is. Has it been converted? Do you convert? How do you make a PDF file that is ready for the printer? Well, the nice thing with 4over is they give you templates. They give you the InDesign or Illustrator Photoshop template. It's set up. All you gotta do is drag and drop in your artwork and you're done. Save it, send it to them. They print it. And they like it that way because it speeds up their end of the world. But I've gotten files where no crop marks. My favorite one is no bleed. I get stuff that doesn't have a bleed. They go straight to the trim. They don't bleed over. So now I can't send the file. I mean, sometimes I can fix it, but so getting stuff ready. We don't paste up onto boards. Jeez, nothing here. So we don't do that anymore. And that's how I learned. I caught the very tail end of that. We already had computers, but I was printing off laser and then cutting it out and putting it on boards. And then we would shoot to a stack camera, and then we would produce film, and then the film was burned to a screen or a plate, and the plate or screen went on the printer. That process is still the same, except now we have the computer. We print to a plate, or we do what's called direct to plate. We print it into the big printer, and it etches it onto the plate. And the way 4-color offset works, it's like a rubber stamp. Ink gets pushed on, ink is pressed onto the paper. It's done 4 times. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. K is black. So C, M, Y, and K. RGB is red, green, blue. That's electronic, what we see here. And then we have spot colors, Pantones. Those are individual. So 1-color, 2-color, 3-color jobs. But I can simulate a 1-color job off 4-color press, and it's going to be cheaper. Because the 4-color press is always running. They don't have to set it up. They send the files, boom, comes off, trim it, we're ready to go. That's how 4over turns around stuff in a day. But look at all the tape up there. I hated that. The other thing is, yeah, there we go. Yeah, these are all things we don't do anymore. Look at the tape. I'm doing squiggly line tape. So if you wanted to draw a border, you had to get the tape off, cut the tape, put the tape down, line it up. There we go. There's actual layout work for some Star Wars stuff. But that's the way things, look at it. It was an entire room of people too doing it. Because you're doing a newspaper, every page had to have been laid out like this in the newspaper every day, over and over and over. And then we would throw it all in the dumpster because that's the way the world worked. So rubber cement. Oh, and waxers. Here's another thing. Wax. There it is. The world's best sealing wax coater. So these would catch on fire constantly. You'd be working. We had one and it would catch on fire because basically it was just hot wax melted all the time. Things would fall in it. And this sounds disgusting, but you know what would start most of the fires? Flies. Flies would fall in the wax and spark up, and then the other things would catch on fire around them. So you'd be sitting there and you smell it. It's like, oh crap, wax was on fire again. And the problem is you can't throw water on a wax machine. What happens? It explodes. Then you got hot wax everywhere. So we actually had a what do you call it, fire blanket. We just throw a fire blanket over it. But yeah, and you always got to remember to turn it off at the end of the day. Otherwise, Yep, there you go. So someone laying out a newspaper. So just be glad. And honestly, if this was back in oh, look at that. That's actually at Fullerton College. That's their news. Oh, here you go. Waxing a page. So if we were in this classroom, that's what we would be doing right now in this program. This replaced all of that. This little guy right here replaced, and all these people lost their jobs. We're talking thousands upon thousands of people in the industry lost their jobs overnight. When we called it an image setter, when this came along, if you didn't know how to use a computer, whoops, there. Boy, look at the difference between that search and that search. Yeah, I guess so. So that's an image setter, not the dog. But see how big they are? Because they print plates. And we still use these today. But it replaced all that other equipment I just talked about. This replaces it with one click of a button. You print film. Film comes out of it. And then that's what we use. So perfect example right there. And that's actually the one I used to have. There it is. And that's film. Actually, that is a negative film, not positive. So be glad. And this was toxic. Your lifespan got cut 10, 15 years. Everyone died in this industry. Printers, everyone had poisoning. Everyone had ink poisoning. It seeps through your hands. That's why old printers, their hands were black. The ink seeped in and got in their bloodstream. And it would run up their arms. You can always tell an old printer because their arms, they'd have black runs up their veins. So it's much safer. And now you guys don't have to cut yourselves with X-Acto knives and slice your fingers off and stab yourself in the leg. I've done all those things. So, but I'm glad this all went away because they're pretty dogs. This was the other thing we used. I had one of these. Stat camera. Look at that, the Museum of Forgotten Art Supplies. But this is a stat camera. Oh, there you go. Look at that, Soviet retro. That's for typesetting, actually. But these are all image setters. This is how all artwork was reproduced. You could take a small image, you pull it up so the camera is zoomed out, because it's just a giant camera, and then put it in, boom, shoot on film. That's how you enlarged. We would use these to enlarge artwork. And you'd have to do it 4 times. 4 colors. So, all gone. So now when you go and work somewhere. Now, here's the problem. If computers die and we can't use them anymore, guess what we're going back to? Because it works. I mean, 1,000 years from now, all that equipment would pretty much be the same. That was how Gutenberg and them did it the first time around. They hand did everything. Things did not change until the 1980s. So we went from like the 1500s to the 1980s with no major changes other than the late 1800s. We had CMYK printing. That's when we first had offset printing. So we did offset printing and then computers. I mean, that's the difference here. And what we've done in 30 years is more than we've done in the last 600 years in printing. And that's why, too, everyone says, oh, digital is going to take over. Nope. We print more now in human than any other time in human history. We print more stuff. Now, mind you, it may not be books, but we print, and we print a lot. Because everyone's got printers now. You got a printer at home. You're running stuff off all day long. So, getting this all together. All right, my session's going to expire. Ignore me. Let's jump back here. All righty. So, artwork and paste up. It is getting the final film or disc or print directly. It's getting something to the printer. So, I'd send my stuff to 4over. 4over prints it. Hopefully, I didn't screw it up. Final goal of the entire process. This is why I like print. Because it's done. The problem with the web is it will always come back to haunt you. Somehow, some way, your client's going to call up and go, my website's gone. Well, what happened? I don't know. You log in. Because I'll do that. I'll just log in for client. You didn't pay your bill. You haven't been paying your web hosting. Your site's gone. I go, they shut it off. It's like getting your power turned off. You're done. And turning it back on ain't easy. Or just things go wrong. The hosting company updates the new PHP and something was different on yours. Now the whole website doesn't work anymore. And it can be 5-10 years down the road. I've had clients come back way from a long time ago. My website doesn't work anymore. I look at it, I go, well, we haven't updated since like 1999. It's been like 17 years. Well, it worked up till now. I go, well, I could fix it, but it's probably time to get a new one. Like let's update. The other thing too is with the printed piece versus the web, I'll be honest, the printed piece is going to last forever. I mean, that's the other thing. What we do on the web, if we go back and look at the first websites, no one remembers them. They're gone. I mean, all that intellectual property is just gone to human history. And that is the other side to all this is it's great that we're all digital, but what happens when file formats go away? We can't open a JPEG anymore. Well, now you can't open any of your photos that you've taken for the past 20 years. So we haven't thought about that really well, but printed, books are still on the shelf. Things are from 1,000 years ago. And right now, even though we're printing more than ever, we're not printing everything the way we used to. Like newspapers by law had to do microfilm, microfiche. Every single time they printed one, they had to deliver it. They stopped doing that. They deliver PDF files. Well, the thing is, you can go back to the 1930s and pull up newspapers all the time, and look up that data. We won't be able to do that in 100 years. So we'll see what happens on that. I like the printed stuff. It's done. I have hard. It's finished work. The web, it never, ever is finished. It's always change this, build that, do this. So that's the process. You got like 3 weeks worth of stuff in like 2 hours. Normally I have you work along, like we do something. And so we're actually physically doing the process. But I'm just trying to get this done as quick as possible. So if I taught your one of your other classes, this is what everything would be based around. So web design process. This will go much quicker than the last one because we've already talked about 90% of what's in here. So building a site is more than just putting all the elements together in Dreamweaver or WordPress. It takes a lot of planning, precise execution, and I spelled patience wrong on that. That's not the right type of patience. So outlined below are some of the critical steps you should be thinking about before building the site. These are just some of the steps. If you're building a large-scale e-commerce site, there's other steps involved. Like you got to get all the product images, all the product SKUs, all the pricing, all the shipping information. I mean, there's different processes based on what the site is. But this is geared towards what we're doing in class. And I'm going to really suggest, think about your online presence because next semester, once again, we're going to do a lot of that. But in here, we're going to build a site. So you're going to need, when we're going through this, think about what you're going to need to collect to build your site. Now, if you're going to build it for someone else, that's perfectly fine. I don't care what you do. You make a completely fake website. You can go on and pull down a whole bunch of images from anywhere and build a fake website. I don't care what your site is. Usually, though, if you're vested in it, in terms of building it for yourself or a client, it makes it a little bit easier. Not easier, but you'll actually finish it. So we need to, first thing is, what type of site are we building? Is it going to be self-promotional? Is it a large-scale e-commerce? Is it a magazine, newspaper, or a news website? You need to think this through and answer carefully because how this content is put together really is going to drive the layout and design of it as well. If we're building a e-commerce website, my layout for my site here isn't going to work. I'm going to need a landing page, some other things. I'll be honest, I was a little lazy on this one, but it's worked out for me because people don't come to my site to look at these individually. I use this for social media to drive traffic. So for all I care about is the landing pages. This page here. This is where more people will end up off of my other areas. And it's actually grown out a little bit. When I opened it, it was just like a home page. That was it. So as I've gone through, I added all my presentations in here so I can send this out to a client and go, oh, you want me to come and speak at your thing? These are my presentations that I've already done. They're already finished. You can watch them. You can go and it's all here. And my issue was too, I have a lot of stuff, so I had to break it all down so it fits on a page. It's nice and clean. So I've collected all this together. Our other part of this is, did I send you guys the mole stuff in the last email? I'll send you this link again. The mole stuff's all set up now. You can go sign up for it. This is the Mole Richardson field trip if you want to go. But I'll send that in an email. So this site's not going to work for an e-commerce site. I'd have to look at a different layout. So you need to decide what you're doing. That's the question you need to ask yourself. So what type of website are you going to build? So now, step 2 is content. This is the research side as well. I'm not calling it research, but step 1 and 2 are really the research. You're going to have to, all the things we talked about, logo, colors, images, content, copy, whatever it may be, you got to collect all that up. Now it's digital. So we work at 72 DPI, but what I suggest is pull everything at high resolution. So if you're asking a client for something, don't have them send you something they pulled off the internet. If they took photos off their phone or if they took photos off a digital camera, you want the original files. You want the biggest stuff we can work with because we can always scale down. We can't scale up. And to show you, you probably already know this, but let's just, where's Photoshop? Come on. Great. There. Bring a picture of a dog. There we go. So this image is 845 pixels by 450 at 72 DPI. Or pixels per square inch PPI. But I'll just keep saying DPI because I'm used to it. So this is not a really big image. I couldn't use it for print. It would be, even though it's saying 11 by 7, this image is going to be about that big. It's tiny. So I can't use it for print, but I could use it again for the web. Problem is, if I go and I need a file that's 1450 pixels, did you just see what happened? See the pixelization? And it's actually looks okay up there, but on my screen, it does not look good at all. If I go to 5000, now you can really start seeing the mess. It's not crisp, it's not clear. I cannot blow up. And I can't do this. I can't make it small. It still looks good small, and I go, oh no. I save it, come back later, I gotta blow this thing back up. I can't go backwards and go back up to 1000. It's gonna look horrible. So working with the biggest stuff first is what we want. If I'm stuck with this, you can't really blow these things up and down. There is some software that will do this. It's okay. If you're stuck, use it. But even Photoshop, this isn't a good way to go. So when you're working with a client, you need high res. I'd rather have a huge file that shrinks down, and then I can always go back to the original. If it's vector-based, great. And we'll talk a little bit about in Photoshop with vector-based files. How many of you know about smart objects? Oh, good. I can do smart objects in here. So we're going to drag and drop in smart objects that are scalable from Illustrator and even other images. So a smart object, and I'll actually do it with this dog. So if I've got a new document, and let's just say, let's do 72 DPI and pixels, let's do 2000 by 600. All right. So I can copy and paste that image. So if I open the dog, just some copy, paste. This is a pixel-based image. If I scale it down, I can't blow it back up. I get the same exact problem I had before. But if I do a file place, I can embed it or link it. But I'm going to do a placed embed. Look at the layer over here. I got a different image. It's now a smart object. Let me turn on my... They move stuff around. Last Photoshop. Oh, well. There it is. So when I'm going to zoom in here. So, it looks good. Dog looks good, right? It's okay for web. I scale it down. Still looks good, right? What happened the last time I blew it up? It looked bad. No, when it's a smart object, you can blow it back up to its 100%. You can't go over it. You can blow it back up with no image loss. This works great for vector-based. I mean, that's where it came from. But you could place other pixel-based images, and if this image was the 300 dpi version, I can blow it up even bigger than the original. Or let me say it. When you bring it in, it allows you to go up or down. So if you got a huge file that you're placing in here, you can play with it all day long, scale it, blow it up, shrink it down, do whatever you need to do. But EPS files work the same way, so do Illustrator files. Those are unlimited because they're vector-based. We can blow them up, shrink them down all day long. But if I'm going to bring in images, I want to bring in big images this way. That way it gives me the flexibility to, I want to just have part of the dog's head in here. I'm laying this out and I go, well, this looks great, but maybe I just want that. I cannot do this and get a good resolution right now because the original image isn't that big. But if my original image was 300 dpi, it was huge, I could do this all day long and not worry about resolution with the smart objects. So we'll go through that again once we start playing for headers. We got to create some graphics. But getting the right files is important. All right, so step 3, well, JPEG and GIF and PNG, we're going to go through those a little bit later on, but those are the file formats that we work with. There's also SVG, which is scalable vector graphics. We can do vector-based objects on the web. They're just code. I don't use them that often. 99% of the time, it's going to be a JPEG or a PNG. Animated GIF files or GIF files, whatever the hell they call them now, that's a different thing as well. But PNG files allow us to do alpha channels. So we could do drop shadows and do transparencies. We can't do that with the GIF or transparent GIFs or the JPEG files. There's also 144 DPI. That's what you call high def for the web. So like Retina displays are higher resolution. You could go down that road, but 99% of the world is still 72 DPI and JPEG or PNG. So thumbnails, we don't do that big of a set of thumbnails for the web, but it's still good to sit down and lay out what you want. Go, okay, I want to have thumbnails on the home page with products, and I want to have a sidebar, and I want to have a banner. By doing that, it then allows us when we're in WordPress, or if we had to build this, we got to have thumbnails. We're going to do it in Photoshop and Dreamweaver. We have to build from scratch. But if you do a Google search for WordPress themes, the very first link that's not an ad is the WordPress.org themes. These are all the themes that are out there that are free. So by doing a thumbnail and coming in and looking for your favorite one, whatever it may be, it will make your life much easier knowing what you're looking for instead of just going, oh yeah, that looks good, and you click on it and install it. And we can play with these. Like here's for photography. So if you're a photographer, this one's already set up with the nice little grid, and when you post photos, they'll replace themselves. There's 1,000 active installs too. So let's look at the preview. The preview ain't very good. So lots of stuff here. We'll go through it, but that's where the thumbnails comes in for this. And then working all that out. Also, sitemap. Now, we're going to do a sitemap. The example that I have here isn't the example we use anymore. It's really this. You need to decide how your site is structured. So do you have pull-down menus? Do you have sub-areas? So if this was my portfolio website, I would have home, and I still use home. I'm a firm believer in it. I hate it when I have a website, I go dig around and look for the logo to click on to get back to the home page. I like to do home and contact. Those two, kind of bookend everything else. Or about us too, or an about page. Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and Resume. So that's my site. I have my Photoshop work, I have my Illustrator work, I have my InDesign work, I have my resume up, and then my contact. And quite frankly, my resume would probably just link to LinkedIn. Because that's where that way I don't have to update it in 2 places. So it might be just an external link out. Contact, real simple, it's your contact information, or it could be under about, or maybe you have both, contact and about. Then Illustrator, Photoshop, I might have subcategories under these. The problem is, how do you know what you're going to put up there unless you've gone through all the work or worked with the client, what they want to have up? So this goes back to getting all that stuff together, having it laid out, have that thumbnail, kind of sketch, and decide, okay, where do we go from here? What content do I have, and how do we put all this content together? We'll be doing this for your site. Make your life much easier down the road. And then mock-up and structure. If we're building the site from scratch, we're going to do a full mock-up in Photoshop. Just the look and the feel, the design. With WordPress, it's really just picking your theme and then working on that theme to get it to look the way you want to. Changing the logo, changing colors. But structure stays the same. We're not going to be doing this part of it in here. We're really just going to be working in WordPress from that point on. Putting it all together. This is the fun part. Sitting down and doing this on going through and creating every post, every page, every little thing that's on here. Like I did this one this morning. Making sure it's all put together right. This is where you'll work. This is the back end of WordPress. So we got to go through all of this funness still. But this is where you're going to spend a lot of time. This is where most people spend all their time, is creating content, editing content, putting it together. Putting together the site's the easy part. This is the part that sucks. I don't like doing it. When I have clients, they ask me, well, can we just hire you to continue updating? I'm like, no, not really. I'd rather just teach you how to do it yourself because I don't want to do this. Oh, here's a new article, put it up. I have to do it for my own stuff. I do these at least once a day, if not twice a day. I get articles from all over the place, but it takes a few minutes, and I got to go onto LinkedIn and do all my stuff there. So that's where a lot of the work's going to go. And just trying things out. Like, okay, do we have I just put this up last night. I wanted to have a little thing with events with the images in the sidebar. So when I tag an event, it shows up in the sidebar on every single page. It's on everywhere. And if they click on it, it takes them to the event. So I had to go find a plugin. I was goofing around with that last night, and I found what I needed, got it running, and it works, so I'm happy with it. And then there's a pop-up thing we're doing too, because we want people to sign up for our mailing list, so I found the pop-up maker, and it works nice and simple too. So it just takes time. Sometimes you think about what you want to do, and you have to go find the parts to make it happen. Last week I brought that up. WordPress can do pretty much anything you want it to do. You just have to find this. You have to find the plugins that'll make it happen. So then, beta testing. You got to get people to try it. It's just like anything else you work on. You miss things just because you work on them so much. So have other people try it out. Send them the URL, click through, tell us if things are broken. If not, then everything's good. And then lots and lots of beta testing. And then uploading and launching, a little bit different in here, but if we were working in in Dreamweaver, we would have to upload through FTP, which is File Transfer Protocol. Same thing, we would have bought hosting, we would have bought a URL, so those don't change. With WordPress, we're going to install it next week. Once it's installed, then it's just working within this interface to make it look the way we want. So think of this as the software. This is what we'll be working in. And yours will look a little different, but we'll install WordFence. This is all the security stuff. It's not been, only one person tried breaking in this week. All right. So And my site's new too. That's the sad part. They find you right away and then they try. So once that's done, guess what? You'll update it again and update it again. And then you have to fix something else. Something doesn't work. New WordPress comes out. It breaks another plugin. Like I said, it never ends. Versus a little trifold, unless you misspelled something on it, it's going to probably just work until it's done. So got this done. We were going to do this anyway next week, so did this first. Make sure that you have your hosting stuff together because next time around, we're going to start getting all the WordPress stuff done.